Are you aware of what drives your goal-setting habits? Are you even aware that you have a goal-setting habit? Well, let's learn how to start with our hearts and think differently about goals in this episode of Doodle-to-Doing. Welcome everyone to Doodle-to-Doing. I'm your host, Karen Light, artist and creative coach at How Doodle, where I support people in becoming empowered creative leaders in their life and work. There is this lie that we're told that working hard and achieving goals is everything. But when it doesn't give you the results you want, it's time to look at how we make those goals and how we get there. What is motivating your goals? Is it shoulds and obligations? Or is it in alignment with bigger purpose and deeper dreams? Does the process feel grueling? Are you tempted to bail or settle for less when the challenges feel insurmountable? Or have you found a way to embrace and enjoy the process? My guest, Michelle Reeves, author of The Happiness Habits Transformation, is here to help us create a habit of goal setting that feels exciting and that leads to more happiness, which we all want more of. Yay! So welcome, Michelle. Thanks for being here.
Hey, really good to be here. I'm very excited.
Yes. And welcome to our doodlers, Nilly and Vanessa. Thank you for being here. We were just talking. We are spanning 4 countries with the 4 of us. So you're getting a global perspective today, which is pretty amazing. I love it. Let's open up our intention setting. Jumping in with intention, as I know Michelle would agree with, is so important. So we're going to even do it in this workshop with our spirit of a doodle. Go ahead and read through the spirit and yell out the phrase that's jumping out to you today.
Forget outcomes.
Yes.
Don't get attached.
I'm going to go with let's see what happens.
I'm going to be in the moment.
Yes.
It's so fun to be with you guys today.
Absolutely. All right. So go ahead and write down the one that was jumping out to you at the top of your paper today. This will be a nice little reminder for you to something you can return to if you're feeling a little like, oh, my head's everywhere, or I'm feeling a lot of things, or I'm getting stuck trying to make my drawing look good. No, none of this is about making it look good. As you see on here, the spirit of a doodle does not care about what anything looks like. In fact, he recommends that you mess up and be a little silly and have some fun and just be with it. Yeah? Okay, let's do a warm-up doodle. So one thing we're going to do today with our doodling is we're going to try to create one big doodle on one piece of paper. So I'm going to encourage you to think about that as we go through all of our little doodle processes and see what the big picture turns out to be at the end. So on the right side of your paper somewhere, I'm going to invite you to draw a simple heart. I'm getting my markers out. I can draw with you guys. That's what all that plastic is. I forgot to grab them. And I've got a brand new set today.
Yay.
It's always good, right? So on the right side, we're drawing a lovely heart of some kind. We got your heart. Just go ahead and hold it up.
Mine's tiny.
All hearts are welcome. Doesn't matter. Yes. All right. So we're all master doodlers. And somewhere around your heart, in your heart, on your heart, just take a couple minutes to think about what's on your heart or in your heart as a goal, something you want to go after, something that's a dream, something that feels really fun to you to think about yourself being in the middle of or experiencing. So just doodle with that for a second. If it is totally abstract, that's okay. Nothing has to be literally put from your head to the paper. Just have fun. Feel the spirit of it. right, so we're going to introduce ourselves to each other with our little doodle here. Karen Light, I am zooming in from Cincinnati, Ohio, USA. And my doodle looks like this so far. My light always blocks it out. And I didn't think too hard. I was just kind of trying to follow my own advice, you know. Sometimes harder to do, but I saw hands, I saw an eye in the heart, and I saw things moving from the hands. And one of the things that came up for me in the last couple of days is this thing that I really want to get at. Like, it's not so much about it's more about the giving, like, you know, it's not so much about getting work, it's about the giving of what you want to do in the world is really coming up for me. So that's what I had on my heart this morning.
Well, I should probably go next, as you guys don't know me.
Yes.
So my name is Michelle Reeves. I'm dialing in from the UK today, just south of Cambridge. If you guys heard of Cambridge University, you'll know roughly where I am. So it's in the southeast of the UK. And I'm the author of a book called The Happiness Habits Transformation, the second edition of which came out just this year, which is super exciting. And my doodle that I did, I'm going to zoom it in a bit so you can see it, is from my heart. My book really came from my heart. So I kind of want to talk about, you know, some of the elements of the book today. So it kind of really felt very important to talk about the book because it comes from my heart. Everything that I wrote in it very much came from my heart. And I'm really keen to get more eyes on it because I think there's so much in there that people can benefit from. So the more we can talk about it, the more, hopefully, the more eyes on it, and the more people can have their own happiness habits transformation, which is really why I wrote the book. So that's me.
Mine. Oh. My name is Nili, and I'm calling from Haifa, Israel. And I'm in the process of starting a community. I even call my sessions Master Heart. So yeah.
Instead of masterminds, like playing on that. That's so clever. I like it.
And especially because I'm not a financial person, but I'm dealing with trauma of money. So this is the community is going, and I approach this subject from the heart and from the wisdom of the heart and from our relationship with money and not from the numbers. So yeah, so I'm sending heartstrings to the ones who will join the community at the beginning of May. Yeah.
Yes, I'm next. So I'm Vanessa Calfin-Otil. I'm zooming in from Mexico, the Yucatan. So I'm a healer, and what I do is I help women heal the part of themselves that has been hurt in the past for centuries and centuries, and even men who have the feminine side also hurt. And so my heart today is this. Let's see if you can zoom in. I put in some letters in there. I put moment. Live in the moment, because I've been asked, I found a hotel that asked me to do some activities over there, some water therapy and retreats. And I noticed that I'm all into trying to think, you know, about how it's going to go in the future and just analyzing. And so I'm trying to stop this and get into my heart and say, what do I want? What, like, as Karen was saying, what do I want to give to the people who come and for the healing session in the water? What's going to come out of my heart, more in the feeling, in the joy of the moment, instead of, you know, trying to do everything right and analyzing, you know, statistics and, you know, my mind just going into places. So that's kind of my thought for the day and my intention for the activity.
Beautiful. Oh, these are all so beautiful. I love starting with the heart already. I'm like, already like, this is so gorgeous. Thank you all for sharing that. I'm going to introduce Michelle a little bit more, and then we're going to get into some questions for her and some more doodles, and we're going to fill this page up and get some real good big picture ideas around what's on your heart today. All right, you guys, I'm excited to introduce you to Michelle Reeves. She is crazy passionate about using the right habits to build a routine that serves us. But it wasn't an easy ride to get there. Back in 2009, she reached rock bottom. After successful careers in PR, marketing, and online business, working with major corporations and handling big budgets, she found herself an expat in China trying to cope with traumatic birth and a premature baby daughter. Looking in the mirror, she literally didn't recognize the woman who was looking back at her. Only when Michelle was diagnosed with postnatal depression did her journey back to success begin, training with some of UK's top life coaches, developing her happiness habits daily routine, which we'll learn more about today and in her book, The Happiness Habits Transformation, and running her coaching practice, which she ran for over 6 years. She was also the director of a U.S. Personal Development Academy. And now Michelle is navigating midlife and perimenopause and finding that her happiness habits support and ground her even more. Welcome again, Michelle. Let's dive
Thank
into this juicy
you.
topic.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for that lovely intro.
Oh my goodness. Thanks for writing such a fun, like, bits and pieces for me to use. I love how you start with crazy passionate. Like so many
I
times,
am crazy
people
passionate.
start very different.
I think if you're going to bring the crazy, you may as well bring it way up front, right?
I appreciate that. Yes. All right. So we're here to learn more about how to make goal setting a part of our happiness habits. That's what you're really discussing in your book, The Happiness Habit Transformation. So can you tell us a little bit more of the story of how you came to write this book?
Yeah, for sure. So goal setting forms one of the habits in the book. So there are 8 habits in the book, and goal setting sits under the habit of clarity, which is habit number 5. But really the story of the book is, and as Karen said, when I was in China as an expat, I had lots of treatment to help us get pregnant. We had to have what's called IUI. It's a bit like IVF. It's a different version of IVF, and we had to have that out there. We'd been struggling for about 4 years to get pregnant. And when we finally did get pregnant, I had the biggest dreams of what that would look like, and sort of a vision for the perfect motherhood. And unfortunately, sort of reality crashed into that vision. And I had a very traumatic birth with her. And so the kind of the split between my vision and reality, the gap between those two places was a place full of fear and self-doubt, and really ended up with me being diagnosed with postnatal depression, quite severe postnatal depression. And I was advised to take drugs to help with that. But I'd had so many drugs with my IUI treatment, I really didn't want to take any more, because I know how much they kind of mess you up. Your hormones get all disrupted, and that really affects your brain too. So I wanted to try and sort it out without drugs. So I went into therapy. I had cognitive behavioral therapy, and the therapy was absolutely amazing. And I did a lot of journaling as part of it. I did a lot of writing therapy, writing being kind of my go-to place. And I always say that the therapy got me from non-functioning, which I pretty much was, back to functioning again, which is fantastic. So I was able to kind of go about my day and look after our daughter. But it didn't really get me back to from what I call functioning to flourishing. And that process I really had to do myself. And that was a long process of personal development and research and reading lots of books, and trying to figure out what the things were that I could build into the small part of my routine every day when I wasn't looking after my daughter, because I had to feed her around the clock. I had to feed her every 2 hours around the clock because she was premature. What could I fit in as part of my routine that would give me that boost? So my therapist helped me with this as well. And over time, I came up with these 8 happiness habits, 8 things that I could fit into my routine that boosted my everyday joy. And I still do those 8 things today in one form or another. And just to talk a little bit about the perimenopause, the reason that that is so relevant, and Karen mentioned it, is when I brought out the 2nd edition of the book this year, I wrote a whole new chapter about perimenopause and the COVID pandemic, and how I had to go back and look at those habits all over again and figure out how they could help to support me moving into this new stage of my life. And they absolutely do. I've had to tweak them. And I wrote all about that in the new chapter. So that's kind of really the background to the book.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And I've read the first edition, and now I need to go read the second edition as somebody who's newly entering perimenopause. Young, actually, but it's happening. So when I heard you talk about it,
it starts from age 39, 38, you can start perimenopause.
I'm in my early 40s and it's happening.
Yeah.
That was very consistent is no longer consistent. And I didn't realize how much that structure I depended on it, or like it grounded me. So I'm really looking forward to reading the second edition of your book, and glad that you inserted that. I want more people to start talking about it. That's such a pivotal point for women. You know, I think all of us have had our own stories of trying to go after something and just being met with a lot of challenges, or trying to create new habits. And that process can be really fraught with a lot of feelings, right? So we want something. Why is it so hard for us to create a habit and make it happen? So what I'm going to invite you to do in this 1-minute doodle, on the left side of your paper, I want you to think about that sort of love-hate maybe relationship. Maybe I'm speaking for myself. Maybe you have a fine relationship with habits. I have yet to meet a person like that, but if you are, I am so happy for you. But that sort of fraught relationship or complicated relationship you might have with habits, I just want you to doodle about that on the left side of your paper. Whatever comes up for you, whatever image pops into your mind, or if it's just a scribble scrabble or something like that, 1 minute on the clock, your relationship with the word habit or creating habits. We're going to save the sharing for the end, but I think it'd be fun just for us all to hold up to see what's on the left side of our paper. Ready? Let's see what's on the left side. Yes. Oh, I just love how different all these are. They're so fabulous. Okay, so we're going to go on a journey with this with Michelle today. And we did mention that you said in one of the steps, clarity, right? This goal setting piece is what we're going to dive a little bit further into. And I'm curious to hear from you. What do you think people overlook when they think about goals and going after their goals? What aren't they maybe thinking about that might be helpful to start thinking about?
I think the key thing, and in the book, I talk about the importance of prioritizing you and finding a way to fill up your own cup. And I think one of the ways that we can do this is by honoring ourselves with this heart-centered habit of clarity. But generally, I find that people go into goal setting not from their heart. They start off by going from their head. And so if we can kind of take a step back before we start setting goals, that's kind of going to allow us to step into that heart-centered space and really start dreaming rather than setting goals. So specifically, the whole idea of clarity, it's the fifth happiness habit. It's about getting clear about what matters most to you and prioritizing that in your life through a clear dream or vision. Now, specific goals and a realistic action plan, that's really important. But we have to start off from the place of what Stephen Covey calls living with the end in mind. So where are we really trying to get to from that heart-centered space? And this is the first step in the book. I talk about the fabulous 4-step funnel for focusing on what matters most. And Karen's actually got a drawing of this. I don't know if you can pull it up.
Yeah, I can pull that up right now. Well, if that's...
that kind of will give us a little bit of a framework for how this kind of all works. But it's like 4 steps that I walk through. And those 4 steps are: dream it, very importantly, then plan it, and that includes the goal setting element, doing the work to get it done, and then reviewing it. So you'll see we've got this little image here. So we dream it, we plan it, we do it, and then we review it. So why do we have to do the dream bit first? Well, for me, it's because setting goals and making plans is really crucial. But if you don't have a clear vision of where you're trying to get to, you'll get all bogged down in the how. So how are you actually going to meet the goals? And that, for me, generally leads to overwhelm, and that gets us nowhere fast. And certainly when I was coaching with my coaching clients, that overwhelm would really kick in. Another thing that can happen, as I said before, is that goals get polluted with the shoulds. So I've got some examples here. So I should be 10 pounds lighter. I should be further along in my career. I should finish that book that I started reading last month. And all those shoulds are often our ego or our inner critic making a judgment about us. And we feel like it's truth, but we don't actually have to listen to it. So instead, I'd like it if we could kind of shift our mindset away from shoulds and towards coulds. So what that can look like is I could be 10 pounds lighter, but actually I want to be stronger. So it's about thinking about what is that vision for where your heart really wants you to be. Your heart doesn't care if you're 10 pounds lighter, but it would certainly like you to be stronger, because if you're stronger, then you have more ability to take part in life. I could finish that book I started reading last month, but actually it's not as good as I hoped, and I'd rather pick another book instead. So again, one of the doodle casts that I know Karen did recently was about that kind of good girl energy. And I think this really plays into that good girl energy, feeling like we have to finish things, even if they're not feeling like they serve us. We can just say no and we can move on and use our time for something that's more productive. So I think those are the main things that I think people tend to jump straight into the goals, when really I'd like us to start from a place of having really huge, big dreams, first of all.
Yes. Oh, I love this. Shifting the shoulds to the coulds. I first learned about this actually from a student. It was like maybe 10 years ago. And I was talking to her and she's like, Miss Light, stop shoulding all over yourself. And I was like, what? Well, first I laughed, and I enjoyed that about it too, because it brings some levity into this thing. But let's dive right into that with our doodle. So we are going to add onto your picture, and I want you to go back to the right side of your picture with that heart. Think about the coulds. Think about the possibilities. Lift yourself out of shoulds and hows, like Michelle talked about. We're not worried about those things right now. And just add to that heart, add to that image that was popping up to you, and see what happens with the could mentality and just the dreaming mentality for 1 minute.
Can I just give people an option as well? Because I have 2 little exercises around this.
Oh, yes.
That are in the book. You don't have to use them, guys, but if it helps you to think this way, this is how I tend to get people into the space of dreaming from heart-centered space. The first exercise is to take a moment to think about something that we don't like to think about at all, actually, which is our own mortality. So imagine that it's the end of your life and you're no longer with us, but what would you want the most important people in your life to say about you when you're no longer here? So that's describing yourself in Doodle as the way you would like people to talk about you. She was the most amazing X, for example. And the second one, if that kind of is a bit too scary, sometimes it really freaks people out, is what are you most passionate about? And what would you do with that passion if money and time were no object?
Oh, I love those. Thanks for adding that. All right, so let's put a minute on the clock and just go with it. Enjoy that doodle on the right side. Expand that heart in whatever way feels good to you as you dream. Let go. Think about what you want to give. Think about what you want people to talk about when they think of you. Anybody else totally want to be lost in this one for about the rest of the day? Kind of fun once you let yourself go, like that's, I think the challenge, like you were talking about, Michelle, is just really letting ourselves go and not get stuck by all those things. And once I do, it's like, oh, I just want to live here. But is that true? No, actually, I think I want to take steps to make it a reality, right? Like the dreaming is so much fun, but really getting there and really bringing it into your current world, your present moment is really exciting as well. So let's go another step with this. We've now dreamt about it. And as you said in your thing, it is time to think about the planning. So
Yes.
Can you lead us through maybe a tool or a process to help us think about planning in a way to bring our dream into reality?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the first things that I like to do with people when we're doing dreams is before we step into planning is to just do a quick checklist on your dreams. Because just to double check that we're definitely dreaming as big as we can be. And I call this biscuit dreams. So that's biscuit, BISCUIT. And they each stand for something that I'd like our dreams to have, elements that I'd like our dreams to have. So they need to be, so B stands for big. So they need to be huge, audacious goals, like really big, like dream as big as you possibly can. The I stands for inspiring. So you want this dream to make you want to get out of bed in the morning. The S stands for scary, because if it's really big enough, then it's going to take you out of your comfort zone. And that's important because we only grow when we step out of our comfort zone. C is the could not should. So just as a little reminder there. So it's suspending that inner perfectionist, making sure it's authentically you rather than something that you're kind of downloading. U is unwavering. So is it a dream that's going to nag at the corners of your mind forevermore? Keep saying to you, you've got to do this, you've got to do this. So mine was writing a book. I've always said, I've got to write a book. I've got to write a book. The I is intentional, which means that you are in control of it and it's within your sphere of influence. And the T stands for terrific, because it should make you grin from ear to ear if you've got a really big goal. Really big dream. So, right. So let me move on to planning. So this is where a lot of people really get bogged down into the how of making dreams reality. And I like to make planning a little bit easier. I call them smile goals, and we're going to have a realistic action plan of questions to help us with that. So a goal is really just a dream that's expressed in a way that you can measure it. And you've probably heard of SMART goals before. I don't like the word SMART goals. I like to call them smile goals, because I think that reminds me that my goals should make me smile. And it's just, again, it's just that heart-centered space rather than coming from the business brain, which I always sort of associate SMART goals with business, but this is about us and our big dreams. It's also a very good checklist that we can vet our goals against, a bit like with biscuit dreams. So biscuit dreams and smile goals. So all our goals should smile. They should be S for success driven. So they have to have an actual result at the end of them. We have to be able to measure them so that we know that we've achieved them. They have to be individual again, so we're in control of them. We can actually achieve them ourselves. They need to fit into a long, medium, or short-term plan for our life. And they need to be exciting, of course, just like our dreams need to be terrific, our goals need to be exciting. And I like us to express those goals by writing them out in a sentence. And that sentence allows us to then pin it somewhere nearby so that we can constantly look at it, because it's constantly looking at those goals, reminding ourselves of those goals, and almost using them a bit like affirmations. So we write it out in a particular way. So I will do the thing you're going to do by this date, which will make me feel amazing because, okay, so I will write the Happiness Habits Transformation by the 31st of January. And this will make me feel amazing because I know other women are going to be able to read it and achieve things.
Can
And
I pause you?
put that why. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Can we actually, the four of us, do this together? Can you
Yes.
lead us in just writing our sentence? So
Sure.
everybody just take one, pick a marker color or whatever, crayon, whatever you got. And I want you to create whatever kind of path really quickly between the left side of your paper and the right side of your paper. And then we're going to write this sentence along our path. Okay. So connect them however you want to. Your path will look like your path. And then I'm going to have Michelle walk us through each step of writing our own sentence.
Yeah, sure. So we start off with the words I will. So it's very intentional.
Mm-hmm.
And then we say what the thing is we're going to do. So I will complete this action, whatever it is. I will write a book. I will buy a new house. I will launch a program. I will start a business. I will gain 5 pounds of muscle, whatever it is that you say you're going to do. And whatever it is that you say you're going to do, it has to be measurable. So you have to be able to know when you've achieved it. Okay, so I will do this thing by this date. Now that's really hanging your heart onto a specific date. Yeah. That is important. And the reason it's important is our goals really do love to drift and they will drift through the months and towards the end of the year. And then we'll get to December and feel like, oh, we never actually achieved it. So we are going to put a date onto when we're going to get this done by. Make sure it's achievable though. Don't say that you're going to lose, you're going to gain 5 pounds of muscle in 1 week. That's not going to happen. Things take time. So allow yourself the space and grace to actually achieve the thing, but give it a date. And then the next piece is which will feel amazing. So I want you to write down which will feel amazing because, and I want you to give yourself a reason why it'll be amazing. Why do you want to do this goal? Be authentic, be honest with yourself, and this will be your motivating part of the sentence to remind you why you want to achieve this. And that will be your sentence. And you can literally do this sentence for any goal that you want to set up. So at the beginning of the year, I'll set myself up the goals that I have for the year, and I will do one of these sentences for each one.
Kind of fun in this situation too, to create this, like we don't have all day to sit and think about it. And it's like, you kind of have to just, it's like when I give you guys a time doodle. Yeah. Like it can be very honest all of a sudden very quick because you don't have time to think like, oh, well, this, or, well, I couldn't possibly do this. Like, just get it out, just put it down. We're moving on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And after we've done this, we're going to move on to how you then turn that into a plan when you have no idea what you're doing, which will be kind of fun. So we'll do that next.
Yeah, I'm ready when you are. You can go ahead, and I think people can think and doodle along as you're.
Okay, super. So we need a realistic action plan, don't we, to achieve that goal. So we've envisioned the dream, we've captured it as like a clarifying goal, but a goal without a plan is just a wish. And we want to really live these dreams. So we're going to work on a realistic action plan. I'm not expecting you to put a whole plan together today, but this will give you a process. So I'm going to introduce you to someone to help with this. I'm going to call her Catherine. So Catherine, she has a dream to write a children's book. She's got 2 children aged 8 and 4, and she wants to write a book that her 4-year-old will be able to read when it's a bit older. And she wants to start a career that she can work on while her kids are still young. So her goal is, I will have a children's book for sale on Amazon by the end of 2023, which will feel amazing because I'll have created something I can be proud of that also encourages children to read. And she's very passionate about that. So you can see how the goal with the why, you can get quite excited about your why, it really drives you. And that is a SMILE goal for all the reasons we said before. Now, the problem is Catherine has absolutely no idea how to go about writing a children's book. It's just a dream. So she immediately starts doubting herself and she doesn't know how to create the plan. So this is where inspiring questions come in, because realistically, we don't know what we don't know, right? You can decide you want to do something, but there's going to be lots of steps along the way that you haven't even thought about yet. So when we're creating a plan and we don't really know where to go, we can use questions for this. So question 1, what do I need to do? This is where we do a brainstorm. So Catherine could brainstorm lots of story ideas. She could decide which idea she's going to run with. She could write a first draft. She can edit that draft. She can create a final manuscript. She can decide how she wants to publish it and market it. Those are all different steps, all the things that she might need to do. And there could be lots and lots of steps that you brainstorm. And it's really important here that we do, just like with your doodling, you just get them all down on paper. You do not judge any of them. This is coming from the heart space. What are all the things that I could possibly do? Then we will go to question 2. What do I need to find out? So for Catherine, what courses could she take that could help her? What sort of children's books are proving to be profitable at the moment? How long should it be? How long should the book be? What software could she use to write her book? And how on earth does she go about publishing it? These are all questions that she has in her head. But these questions are really important to capture, because a task can be finding out the answer to that question. You can 100% put questions on your planner, and then they have a timeline for you to be able to capture the answers to them. Then question 3 is, what order do I do all of these tasks in? Because some of the tasks that Catherine's got on her list will be sequential, and some of them she can do at the same time. So she'll create a timeline. So again, thinking about that lovely line that we just did on the doodle, we can doodle out a timeline. And on the timeline, you can basically write down the questions or the tasks, if you know what the tasks are, along the timeline, no specific dates, just where will they flow? Where will they sit relative to each other? And then question 4 is where we then take that funnel down to the last point. When will we actually do these tasks? When will we find out the answers to these questions that will help us move forward? So Catherine grabs her planner now and she looks at her available time. This is really important as well. We need to be really clear about how much available time we have. There's no point trying to shoe in a piece of research, trying to find out the answer to a question in the 10 minutes you've got between 2 different tasks. You need to look at your available time and make sure there is some space in the calendar to get these things done. So she sees that outside of the school holidays, Thursdays are a good day for her to set aside some time for solid writing. And she has a couple of other spaces in the week where she can research answers to those questions. So she knows what she needs to do, what she needs to find out, and when she could potentially do those things. And then she sets herself some monthly and weekly task and question goals, working back from the date that she'd like to achieve her dream. So publication date maybe is 1st of January. She'll need to have the manuscript finished by a particular point, which means the first draft needs to be finished by a particular point, which means she has a certain amount of time to do the writing and the research. And these are all best guesses. Let's be honest. At this stage, these are best guesses, but that's fine. They're markers in the sand, and we can use those markers and revise them as we go along. So that is the step for planning. And we use the questions there to make it a little bit easier for our brain to cope with.
I really appreciate the questions. I think one of the things I notice a lot with my clients is they get very quickly into, procrastination mode or failure mode because they're not realizing these things that they don't have the answers to, and they don't realize how much those questions are keeping them from taking the action. And just taking a second to be like, oh, I don't know this information, or I don't know where this is, that's a step. Like, those are steps to take. That, your step isn't to write the book. Your step is to figure out, like, how what's the best way to structure a book? Like, I don't know. If you don't have those answers, then you can't keep going. And instead of beating yourself up about it, this is a really concrete way to make some progress and understand that, like, no, there's more going on here than you just not being able to do something. So appreciate that so much. Okay, so with these questions, whatever popped out to you. These are really lovely tools, right, for this path that we're creating from the left side to the right side of our paper. So whatever came up for you with what Michelle shared around these questions, doodle about that for the next minute. Add it to your path. Whatever came up, whatever you want to remember, take a doodle note of it on your path. All right. So as you're finishing up, I'm going to ask Michelle about this next step, which is
Cool. So the next step,
actually doing the thing.
doing it.
Doing the thing.
Yeah.
We're not just dreaming
Especially-
about it now. We're not just talking about it. We're not just wishing for it. We're not just planning for it. But now we got to go do the thing. So what can you share with us about doing it?
Yeah, so doing it is very important, as Nike said, just do it. And if you're anything like me, I love planning. I absolutely love planning. I'm a real planner. I mean, I look at all these notebooks. And there's loads behind, and there's another shelf down here. I mean, I have tons. I'll just plan forever. I love it. But we do need to get to the doing at some point. So the way that we need to start off this process is by focusing on our mindset. It's really important when we start actually doing the do that we focus on our mindset. Because if our goals are as big and exciting as we've talked about, they'll also be scary. And our brain is hardwired to avoid fear. So that inner voice is going to come up, and it's going to shout quite loudly at this point and tell us that we just can't do it. And this is because when we were cave women, our brain's job was to protect us. And although we feel like we've moved on a long way, over the last few thousand years, our brain still tries to protect us, even if it only sees danger at the level of our thoughts. And something called the motivational triad kicks in here, and it shows us how this works. So if you can think of a triangle, even doodle, just draw a triangle on your page, actually, as I'm talking. And there are 3 points to this triangle. And on the top one, I want you to write pain. And that's because our brain's main job is to help us avoid 3 things. The first thing is pain. The second thing for your point is it wants us to seek pleasure. So avoid pain, seek pleasure. And the third point is going to be energy, because our brain's job was to help us conserve as much energy as possible. So we were avoiding the pain of, saber-toothed tigers coming along and eating us, seeking the pleasure of community, of being in a group, of warmth, of good food, and conserving as much energy as possible so we could run away if we needed to. That was really, really important when we were in survival mode. But our brain still sees that danger, and it goes back to that motivational triad, even when we're fearful of just things that haven't even happened yet, but we're visualizing them in our mind. And that can really sabotage our goals. So this is very important because our thoughts, of which they estimate something between 60,000 and 80,000 thoughts a day. Our thoughts create our results. Yeah, it's an amazing number of thoughts we have. You're having thoughts now. Even while I'm talking, I'm still thinking. And while I'm talking, you're thinking. And our thoughts actually create our results, because our thoughts create our reality. So nowadays, avoiding pain means the pain of failure or embarrassment. So as a result of that pain, we might procrastinate or quit. And that is the way our brain kind of gets us out of that pain. Seeking pleasure can look like overeating, over drinking, or hitting the shops, just getting that credit card smoking a bit. It gives us that little dopamine hit, and that's seeking pleasure. And conserving energy now might be looking like doing as little as possible. So that's where we might sit on the sofa and binge Netflix, with a bucket of Ben and Jerry's. You know, it's a great avoidance tactic. These are all avoidance tactics. But what our brain doesn't understand is the things we're trying to achieve. Yes, they're a bit scary, but we also really want them. So we need to start using our thoughts to support our goals proactively. And if you think about Google search, if you're not clear on the search terms that you put into Google, you're going to get junk results out, aren't you? So junk in, junk out. Our brain works in a similar way. So if we have negative thoughts or unclear thoughts, those are going to lead us to negative or unclear results. And there's one negative thought or limiting belief in particular that we tell ourselves, which causes a lot of problems for our goals. And that is, I need to feel more confident before I get started. So we all think we need confidence, but this is a myth. We don't actually need confidence to get started. Confidence is a byproduct of having done something. We feel confident when we've achieved something. We do need a C word, but that C word is courage. So we really need to focus on being brave, shutting off our inner critic. And one of the ways I like to do that is by thinking that what we're doing is just an experiment. So we are experimenting. We're just doing something to see what happens. And if you experiment, that takes away some of the pressure. You're not going to be too caught up in the result. You're just experimenting. And really, that's what we're doing when we're in the do it phase. We're doing lots and lots of experiments, and we're seeing what works and what doesn't work. And those results allow us to move forward. And the reason that it's a myth about the whole difference between courage and confidence is because our brain thinks that it's the situation that we're in that's causing us to feel bad, that's causing us to feel like we're lacking in confidence. So, but really it's not the situation, it's the limiting belief we have. We have a limiting belief because we have a thought about the situation. And it's the story that our mind creates using those thoughts that really makes us back off. So I've got a tool that I'm not going to share it with you right now because we're quite tight. We can be a bit tight on time, but I have a tool called the STEAR model, STEAR, and it's a model that you can use to analyze your thoughts. And this is great because becoming aware of our thoughts is actually the first habit out of my 8 habits. So this pulls together some of the habits you've got together and you can see how they work together. So habit 1 is thought awareness. So we become aware of our thoughts. And we use this tool to help us reshape them. And on my website, there is a free workbook that you can use, you can download to help you do this and to walk through this. And I'm sure Karen can put the link in the show notes, but it's michellereeveswrites.com/resources. And there's a load of workbooks there that are all free that you can just download. You don't even need to put your email address in because I'm just not that organized. You just get it for free. But this is a model that you can use to help you with that process. So that is the 3rd step, which is do it.
Yes. I think you slipped and said cricket, but now it just like really works for me. Like it really works. Like I think like I'm just gonna picture this. Oh, that's my little inner cricket that won't shut up. You know, like
it's a bit like Jiminy Cricket. You know, like sitting there on your shoulder, like
oh
you
my
can't
gosh,
do this.
yeah. But I'm so glad you're talking about this confidence piece. I think it's huge. You know, I hear it a lot too. I just want to feel more confident. You're going to feel confident when you go do the thing or try the thing or take a little risk or do a little experiment. It doesn't have to be the whole thing. I love this experiment talk too. You know, a lot of the model that I use a lot with my clients is that trans-theoretical model for change. And along that route are so many different stages to actually action. Action looks like so many things. An experiment is a huge place. Like we lived there for a while until something really grabs hold of us. And we're like, okay, now I can maintain this or I could grow this. You live in experiments, and that's, you know, that's the spirit of the doodle as well. So these tips are beautiful. And what I want us to add to our path right now is something that gives you that courage. Think about what helps you step into that brave space when maybe you don't feel confident and start doing it anyway for the next minute. Add it to your path. Hey, Michelle, as we're finishing up this little doodle, I know there's one more step, and let's just touch on that because I want to use the momentum of this path to take us into our longer doodle. But can you touch on the review it part for a few minutes?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So the final step in the process is review it. And this is the step that a lot of people will miss out. But it's really, really important. Whenever you do an experiment, you need to look at your results and decide what you can learn from those results. And that really is the review it part of the 4-step process. It's where we can relax our focus for a moment and get some altitude. So I like to think of it as zooming up into the clouds and looking down on ourselves, looking down on our goals, our plans, our tasks, what we've achieved. And I like to pause and reflect each week, each month, each quarter, and each year. So I do 4 different reviews. They're all very similar, but they're almost like staging posts. So your annual review is going to be a much bigger one, but really you're pulling together everything that you've done in the year. So you pull together your 4 quarterly reviews, and it's actually really lovely at the end of the year to have like a whole A4 page of all the things that you've achieved. So by doing this, we don't only sort of find the things that we've achieved that we feel good about. It's also about course correction. So it's about, if you're driving along a road, if you don't have a sat nav and you just keep driving in one direction, you're not necessarily going to end up where you're trying to get to. So you need to course correct as you're going along to stay on track, rather than waiting until you end up where you weren't supposed to be. And I think we can use our regular reviews as well to build in 2 more of my happiness habits, just to throw 2 more in there, which is happiness habit number 3, which is gratitude, and number 8, which is a daily success party plan. It's all about celebration. So within that review, we don't want to be dumping on ourselves if we didn't get things done. So failure is just about learning. So anytime we fail, it's purely a lesson that we're learning. We're learning what doesn't work. So that means that within our experiment, we need to try something else. And so gratitude can be, we can be grateful for everything that we've learned. And then the celebration piece is about looking at what we have achieved and making sure that we do some celebration every time we do a review. And those feel-good emotions that you get from the gratitude and the celebration is what motivates us to get us back on track. And I have a couple of review workbooks on the website as well under the same link. I think there's a quarterly review. I'm just seeing if I can see them. I've got the page here. So there's a half-year review workbook, and there's also a reflection on the year. It was for 2023, but I mean, you can absolutely grab it and look at the questions in there as well. So there's 2 different review, and there's also one with 21 gratitude prompts too. So feel free to dive in and grab any of those workbooks if you feel that they will be helpful. But I think the review piece is one that a lot of people don't do, and I would highly recommend that you do it to allow you to course correct as you're going along.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. One of my practices, I'm a big bullet journal person. And one of the things that it builds into that is looking at the previous day, and you have to carry over anything. But it's meant to be in the spirit of curiosity, right? Like if I keep carrying this thing over and over and over again, why is that happening? Am I stuck in shoulds, or am I stuck too much in the how, or do I have a question that needs to pop up? And the other thing I love about what you're saying too is this celebration piece. So many times we lose steam because all we can see is everything we haven't done yet. And when we take time to celebrate all that we have done, all that we have accomplished, it can really give you some momentum to like move into it. And not everything you find in the review is bad, right? There's some really good stuff. Like, how can I build on that? Like, how can I dream bigger with that? How can I expand that thing that's going well and maybe let go of something else, or the idea that I had before? So yeah, I will put all the links to Michelle's stuff in the show notes. She's got wonderful, wonderful resources on her website, very generous with her offerings. So thank you, Michelle.
I have a comment too about this that you're speaking about. Doing like a clean slate before you start a new goal that you're setting. It's something that I just did yesterday, so I didn't really think about it until now. We're talking with you guys. It will stop you from getting in the mode of, it's gonna fail like last time. What's the point? And like with this instance that I'm telling you about, I'm working with a new hotel. I noticed that there was some kind of resistance for me working with the previous hotel that I worked in. And there were some things that I didn't like very much. So what I did is I ended up I consulted a therapist just for that, my previous story with the hotel, so that I got clear on what was it that was hindering me. And so now I can start clean and pure, with this new project. I don't know if it makes sense. It's kind of like a review, like a post review of the past that I didn't do before, but I did before I start this new project. Just kind of thinking aloud. That's just kind of what came up for me.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And if you think about it, if you look at management consultants, when they work with a client, the end of a project, they always do a review. They always do unpack a whole process of reviewing what worked, what didn't, what lessons do we learn, how do we move that forward into the next client. So there's no reason why we shouldn't do that ourselves with everything that we try. What worked, what didn't, and those are actually some of the questions in the review process that allow you to do that clean slate. So I think that's really, really, great idea, Vanessa.
Yeah.
And I think it also feeds well back into when you start having that, being super aware of your mindset, like that awareness that you had with that resistance allowed you to be like, wait, my mind's not right here on this. Let's do a review. Let's see what's going on here so that I can give this its best shot. That awareness is, I think you can start just to see how this all just really feeds into each other very organically too.
Like a personal feedback, you give feedback to yourself instead of doing it with a group of people. You feed yourself back on you.
Yeah, it works everywhere. Well, let's take all of this into an imagination meditation and a longer doodle. So I'm going to invite you to just get comfortable wherever you are and just let everything be out of your hands for a few minutes. And close your eyes and go within for maybe take a nice deep breath in. And let your exhale be a little bit longer than that inhale. And do that one more time. The more your body is relaxed, the more it feels like it's safe to send resources to our creativity and our imagination or inspiration. And your deep breaths tell your body and your mind and your nervous system that everything is well right now. It's safe. We don't have to be vigilant. We can dream and imagine. And bring to mind your picture so far. Don't look at your picture. Just bring to mind whatever it is that shows up for you with what you remember about your picture so far. And this picture is all about moving from this space on the left towards what our hearts really want. And we've been creating this path full of helpful tools and tips and courage and beautiful reminders that can lead us there. And one of the things that's so important that Michelle touched on is these smaller milestones so that we can celebrate. We don't just have to wait to get to the other side of the path to feel good and to celebrate. We can have more enjoyment, and the book's all about creating this happiness in our routines and our habits along the way. So picture for yourself what a milestone might look like as a visual image. Whatever comes up for you is okay. What's maybe a first milestone for you? And I want you to imagine enjoying that milestone and being in that moment. And as you're picturing this, I want you to slowly blink your eyes open and begin to doodle about it on your path. You can add to your path this idea of your milestones and what beauty there lies in getting from one thing to the next on the larger path. Because the truth is that we don't know the whole path all the time. So how can we enjoy that ride? We're going to doodle for 5 minutes. Just follow wherever it takes you for 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and talk about it. to see what everybody's picture has turned into. We had a little bit of a vision of the right side, a little bit of a quick vision of the left side, and I'm really excited to see what has filled in since with this conversation. So I'm going to open the floor up for sharing and also for questions. If there's something that you want to ask Michelle during this time, this is a great time to do it. Or maybe there's a sharing and a question that goes together. And you're welcome to share however you want to. You can show your doodle and talk about whatever part of it you want to talk about, or you're welcome to hold it up and ask us what we see in it to get some new insights that maybe you didn't think about before. So the floor is open. Also, take yourself off mute. I put that in there for the imagination meditation.
On the other side is like empty, like it feels like it's overflowing with joy and happiness and all those colors, while the other one is, yeah, there's like emptiness. Yeah.
I'm really actually interested in how, if we're looking at an image in this symbolic way, one thing I invite you to consider is that there are no accidents, and so the fact that it's back on the left side, to me, some of the messages there for me is like, even when we think we're stuck or at the beginning of something, like, our heart's already there. Our heart already believes it's happening or it can happen. And even though we achieve something, we could still end up right back at the beginning, feeling all the same feelings, because now we're going on to something bigger and something new. And so I think there's a lot of wonderful symbolism that comes up for me with this idea of it going sort of full circle.
I really love on the left hand side, the way you feel that bit has so much energy. I can really feel the energy from that, the kind of, it just speaks a little bit to kind of trepidation but excitement at the same time, which is really interesting because our body doesn't really see the difference between the two things. Being terrified and being excited is, our bodies experience it in kind of the same way. So I really love that. It makes me feel all that jolt of the first step of something when you're about to do a new goal, which I always think is really exciting.
Mm-hmm. And another thing that comes up for me too is like almost like the heart on the right, like Nili was saying, how it's empty. Like the present moment is a blank slate, like the present moment is a blank slate, and it looks like you went on a journey to figure out what you wanted to fill it with. And it's even fed by, it almost looks like lightning bolts and rain coming down on it. It's even fed or maybe even energized by that storm that you've been through or that you're weathering in the process. What's coming up for you? What's resonating?
Yeah, I like that. And what you said, that's kind of before in some of the doodle sessions, it's interesting. So I really like the idea of filling out the heart of being the fear. This was actually a blank slate. That's actually funny that you say that.
Oh.
That's exactly what I was aiming at. I was like, how do you doodle a blank slate? That's interesting. And so this one was me having a magic wand, to transform other people. And I thought, well, why does it have to be one normal magic wand? I just did several. And then I laughed because the third one ended up looking like a chicken.
It does.
It's like, how does a wand turn into a chicken? And I'll have to look at the symbolism.
Well, even just think about that word, right? Like it's the opposite of confidence. Like you're still doing it even if you feel like a chicken. That's
right,
bravery,
right.
that's courage, right?
Confidence. And this was me doing like the step was what is it that I want from this experience? And the first thought that came to my mind was, oh, I'm gonna get money, you know? And I thought, well, money is, you're gonna pay bills with that. It's gonna be gone. You can't have it as a goal because it doesn't come back to you. So you find like another goal in it. It was reaching a heart. So like that would be me reaching one heart, and then that needs healing. That's like the Band-Aid. Then me reaching another heart, then reaching another heart. And in return, these hearts reach me. That the colors that are in my heart are actually the colors of the people that I serve. And sometimes it can be couples, you know, that are needing help. Sometimes it's children. And sometimes, like you say, it's just chicken that just needs some healing, you know. So that kind of made me feel like more excited about having a goal that's tangible. I mean, actually, it's not really tangible, but it's for me, it's precise, you know, and it doesn't depend. My worth is not going to depend on what I get in return, because just by giving, my goal is fulfilled. Yeah, and that was like the passage of time that I wanted to put in and see how I feel in my time. That was kind of like a question that I'd leave for myself to answer. That.
Beautiful.
I wanted to say one more thing about the empty heart. The empty heart is the one that goes into the new hotel without the old story. It doesn't carry inside the old story. It's open to create a new story.
Oh, right. A blank slate. Yeah, I love that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you,
Vanessa.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Who else would like to share?
Mine is a is a mess.
Yay for messes.
We love mess.
We love mess.
Turn the mess into a message, right?
Yes, I like that.
So first, like what you just said, Vanessa, resonated with me because I was thinking that my goal is to reach 15 people for the to recruit at least 15 people for, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to focus on the outcome. I'm going to talk to old beloveds and share with them what I'm doing today. And if it resonates with them, they might join the community. And so these are like all the hearts that I'm going to reconnect regardless of if they'll join the community or not. So
I love that switching because, you know, you can't really control 15 people sign up, but you can control who you talk to. Like you can, and how, you know, and it went back to your heart. Like that was beautiful. Thank you.
And I was thinking like the giraffe is my spirit animal for the year. And the giraffe is the animal that has the biggest heart. It weighs like 2 kilos, I think.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
Big-hearted, on the other hand, it's very assertive with boundaries. You don't want to be kicked by her. So. And also she's farsighted. She can see what's going on before everyone else. And I feel that this, like, for me, trauma of money exists in the world. I've been around for like 4 years, but in Israel, it's brand new. And I'm the only one that's talking about it. I'm like, listen, you know, and I'm sharing with people what I see that's coming up. So it's good. And from the heart, not from judgment, not from here.
I love that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I wanted to say thank you, Michelle, because I was working on this project and I felt at the end of the day that I was like, I don't want to do it. And just working on it like this, I'm like, yeah, I want to do it. So I kind of lost the spark when I was, you know, trying to what I need to do instead of like thinking of the big dream. And so thank you for reminding me of that.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm so excited for your dream now. And tell me, I'd love to know a bit more about on the I guess it's your right hand side. There's like 3 people, 4 people that you've drawn there. What was coming up with that one?
About the habit, starting, exciting. Yes, I'm going to start.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, because I thought they were celebrating. I was like, I wonder if that's like celebration at the end, like you achieving it. That's kind of what it picked up for me, that almost
If
like
you-
at the end,
Yeah,
it's
if
a
you
celebration.
hide, but if
Yeah,
you,
because it's in reverse.
but I think that again, I'm a laughter therapist, so and I usually work with people like to clear all the painful stuff so they can reconnect with their with their joy. But sometimes I forget that when I take upon habits that don't have life force in it for me, I will not stick to them. So now my question is like, does it have a life force in it for you? Otherwise, don't commit.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes,
Not because I
Yeah.
should do it.
exactly.
Makes me happy doing it.
Yeah, and also the whole thing with shoulds as well is sometimes we think, oh well, that doesn't speak to me, but it might speak to you in a different form. So it's like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but can I make that apply to me in a different way?
Mm-hmm.
And I used to like buy tons of courses, and the perfectionist would like write everything, every word, and because it's in English, I would have to stop and sometimes translate it into Hebrew. And I'm like, this is why you don't finish courses. So I found that I listen to them and I do them, and now I complete my courses. So
I
yeah,
love that.
And also what I like is how you incorporated all the different aspects in one drawing instead of being all hectic and disorganized and one from one side to another. They're all integrated into this beautiful image. And I think it's not just an integration of a drawing, but it's the integration of your dream. It's like from what you say, you have so many passions, and you have to find a way to put them all together so that they have like they're not just something you start, like you say, and then you stop. You're putting them all together and integrate it into one thing that's going to be easier for you to actually achieve that goal. So I just love how you're teaching us, at least you're teaching me to do that, to integrate, not feeling that something's going to be left out. It's just moving in seamlessly together and into the mess, like Karen was saying. It's not a mess. It's kind of like an alchemy. It's a magic.
Yeah, I see less of a mess than what I was expecting when you said it was a mess. Like I see a lot of cohesion and like Vanessa said, that word integration. And just like a ride, like a fluid movement. Like I'm just like, oh, this is a nice ride to ride. This isn't like which way's up? Like I know, like I might go up and down a little bit, but I'm moving in a direction that feels really,
and it's moving up.
yeah. It's moving up. One
last thing, I know you're going to think it's funny, but the giraffe, that just completely blew my mind, because I'm pretty tall, and in high school in France, I used to be called a giraffe all the time, and I took it like so bad, like I felt like an insult. And now I'm like, I'm a giraffe. I'm a big part, and and I set boundaries, and that's exactly what I need to do in my life, is setting boundaries and letting my heart out. So it's like suddenly you're changing this whole perspective of my youth and what people used to say about me. Now I'm like proudly boasting it.
Yay for reframing a story like that. Oh.
Yeah.
And I think too, that boundaries piece, we have to set boundaries with ourselves, like with the thoughts that we're not going to allow ourselves to think, with the way we're going to do something. Like, one of the things that came up for me in mine is like, my path is like this. And one of the things I have to constantly do for myself is unpack that we need to have a linear path. Like my path is not linear. Most people's paths are not linear. We can look at examples and see what we think are linear paths, but they're not. And when I just put boundaries on that and say, Karen, you're not going to think about it that way. Do your thing, do it your way. Then the heart comes back in, right? Then the life force comes back into it. Then the juice is there to go and run off of and feed from and be energized. So it reminded me of that too. Beautiful. Michelle, do you want to share anything from yours before we wrap up?
I can, absolutely. Yeah. So mine's all one monochromatic. I only had one pen color with me today.
That's
which
awesome.
is a bit rubbish.
It's
But
great.
it's monochromatic. Can you, and if you can see that.
Yeah,
So
can you
anyway,
back it just a little off?
I'll back it up a little bit.
Yeah, there we go. Mhm.
Okay, so we start over here, I guess, with this was like what we started with. And then down here is my sort of path, and this is time. And this is really spoke to me about needing to be a bit more flexible with my time. I can be quite rigid with my time with myself, but I need to be a bit more flexible with that and kind of just go where my heart wants to go on a particular day. And if it doesn't feel like doing the thing that I had on my calendar, then I'm not going to beat myself up about it. And then I guess this is the path with the dreams and the questions and the reviewing and the heart-centeredness and getting rid of the no's and focusing on the yeses, and a message to myself that the sun will still come up tomorrow, even if we make mistakes. So this was kind of the whole piece about, just getting rid of any fear of failure. And then this up here was be in the moment, permeating everything. And then down here was kind of, this was the cricket. When you said cricket, I ended up drawing a cricket. And then this is kind of like the end goal, I suppose. This is a place that I don't even know if this will ever happen, but I moved from being a traditionally published author to self-publishing my book when I got my rights back for my book this year. I created my own imprint. So it's published under my own imprint, which is called Brockwell Press. And I have a vision that maybe one day in the future, I can help other women to create their own stories. So I think I've got words down here, share wisdom, experience, truth, and kind of sharing wisdom and experience through their own stories and helping them to publish maybe in the future. So that's kind of where that came from.
That's beautiful. Thank you. I had to mute over here. You live in a small house and you've got other people jumping in meetings and stuff, but I love how it all turned into this, your vision, like that expansion. Like, I want more people to see my book, and now I want other people to have their books and to see their books, and us all to put this beautiful stuff into the world that we're learning and growing from.
Yeah.
I love seeing that expansion in your doodle.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where the vision, that's the really big dream would be, to help other people to do that, and maybe who don't know how to do that, and then us going on that path together, because I think there's so much wisdom. I've put up here sharing solutions through story, and I think the more that everyone has their own story, and there's so much experience and wisdom in people's story. Like, I've learned so much just from listening to you guys today and listening to Nilly and to Vanessa, and I think just us all experiencing other people's stories can help us to grow in our own way. So it was kind of just trying to capture some of that, I think.
I can't help it, but I see my giraffe sees further, because your story and your heroine journey was not just a story of inspiration. It was eventually translated in a method that now you're teaching other people how to use. And for me, I feel that you will help other women not just write their stories, but to see the wisdom and the method that can help other people through their stories. This is what I see.
Yeah, I think there's so many people have solutions. They've found solutions to their own problems, and they don't realize how much that will help other people. So I think more power to us as women, using our wisdom and our intuition to find solutions, and then sharing those with other women. It's all about women supporting women. And I think particularly during this, I'm very focused on perimenopause and kind of where that all is at the moment, and how we need to talk about it all the time with each other, because it's a space that hasn't really been talked about. Although I did hear Oprah started talking about it quite recently, and if Oprah talks about it, it's going to be in the mainstream. But it's not been a really big discussion and it's something that we all go through.
And I think something that what you said that's very, very stood out for me today is the experiment, that act on it as an experiment. And for me, as a person who has lots of passions, it's almost intimidating to have like a structure, like to hear you say, oh, what are your goals for the future for 1 year? That thought just kind of constricts me so much, you know, and it frightens the hell out of me because I'm more of someone who does things because I'm happy, you know, and putting a deadline, it scares me in a way. It's important that I do it. And what you say about the experiments takes away some of that weight of you know, like the thing about forget outcomes, you know, that Neely chose today. And I saw it in a recent book today by one of your contemporaries also. I've been reading, I don't know if you've read North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell.
Yes.
It's an amazing.
I do know North and South, actually. I studied it at A-level.
Like I live in it. I've been living it in my head for like days now. I don't know, you guys should read it because it's a story about a heroine who comes to her own. It's a really strong feminist book. And the man in the story owns a mill, and it's like the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, you know, so there's a clash between the workers and then the masters, and he's a master, and he says, well, I'm going to do an experiment, he calls it. He says, well, to actually get together to get to know what the workers want and me talk about what I want, you know. And I've been thinking about that. If you speak it in a way that it's an experiment, that you don't feel the pressure on yourself, that you're putting a goal of, oh, I'm going to make, you know, the working class and then the middle class come together. No, I'm just doing an experiment. And I think if we back to our lives, you know, I'm going to do an experiment with this hotel, or like Neely's saying, I'm going to do an experiment with the community, and I'm going to do an experiment with the book, you know, that Michelle's doing, then the pressure is off, because we're just trying something out. We're just experimenting something new, something that we don't know what the outcome's going to be. So I think that comment and today's session really, like Neely was saying, it like kicked us in the butt to just say, you know, do it. Because same way for the hotel, I was like, no, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm just going to stay home. And today's session just kind of really invigorated. I can speak for myself as well, to just say, yes, this is my heart. It's my heart that's speaking, and let's do it. Let's do an experiment. Let's do an experiment and do it with love. And
because I feel like what happens if we keep that pressure on ourselves, it over time does clamp our dreams down, right? Like I work with a lot of people who are afraid to dream. That first thing that we did, I've had people break into tears, and we've had to back way up because there's something there that has been clamped down. And a lot of it is this fear that they won't move forward, that they won't take the steps, you know, and there's too much pressure. And that's one thing that really came up in me. It's hard to see it because it's all over the place. But these question marks with the hearts around them came up everywhere. Just like loving the questions, seeing the questions as a milestone, you know, celebrating every time I'm in a spot of like, I don't know, you know, because then that means that there's new magic that could open up. There's a new fun thing that could happen in my path that I didn't plot out, you know. That's where the fun, the happiness for me comes into it. So this conversation is so rich. I'm sure we could talk about it like all day long, but I do want to close out and just really thank you from the bottom of my heart, Michelle, for being with us today. As you can see, you know, we have a lot of feelings around this. I'm sure that's why it sparked you to write the book to begin with, because you had your own. But thank you for sharing that with us, your story.
No, thank you. It's been my pleasure to join you today. I've loved it. Thank you.
Of course. I'm going to put all of Michelle's information in the show description, the link to her book and the link to those resources that she mentioned earlier. And thank you so much, Nili and Vanessa, for showing up with all of your beautiful comments and doodles. You've made our conversation so much richer, and I'm sure other folks will resonate with so much that you said. Thank you everyone else for listening. And until next time, keep sparking that creativity.